Welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing, while also documenting their own personal investing journeys, are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Corey here with another episode. Today we are doing, I guess you'd call it a solo cast of just Corey and I, no special guest other than ourselves, but we wanted to walk you guys through a couple updates in terms of our real estate portfolio. A lot of people have been asking for journey updates and figured it'd be good to spotlight a few things that are going on right now, good and bad. I think we'll probably start with the bad just to rip the Band-Aid there because, as you know, nothing's perfect. We had probably the worst thing that happened was earlier in the year, one of our properties burned down, and we're also experiencing another pretty large issue in terms of cash flow at the moment. So we want to dive in there, but then we'll take you through the successful projects and then some of the fun things that we have going on towards the end of the episode.
Yeah, we got some recommendations from some mentors and also some requests for people like, hey, I love your guests that you bring on, but like, we're really interested to know what you guys got going on. I think like it seems to be like every 20 episodes or so, but that's like near half a year. So we want to do it sometimes a little bit more often, or if we have something that comes up like this, that we want to share what's going on in our personal portfolio and our journey towards, you know, that financial freedom. So that's the idea here. But before we jump in, I want to ask if you've been listening to the show and you like our content, you like what we're doing here, if you could leave us a 5-star review, Apple Podcast or Spotify, it really helps us. It goes a long way. It helps us move up in the rankings. We've kind of said it before, but that's kind of like an appreciation for what we've done, just because, you know, all this is free content. We really appreciate you listening. So thanks so much if you could do that. But if we want to dive in here so we have this property, one of our personal short-term rentals, and we own a number of others as a part of an investment unit. Like we own a 43-unit resort, and we own a 7-unit portfolio of bungalows. But this property that we're going to be talking about is actually just one that Ryan and I own, and we have had, it's just a nightmare, and our property has been vacant for 90 days. 3 total months we have not been able to rent out to any guest. And as of this episode is going to be airing, I guess, like the middle, probably like the 13th. I don't know if that's the Wednesday coming up. So we just recorded this, but as of the 7th or 8th, we're finally allowed to have people in the property from September, the beginning of September. So you may be thinking like, why? That's crazy. What's going on? And I mean, there's a number of things going on. I think one of the mistakes that Ryan and I made is that we did not vet out the HOA of where our community is, because every single year you have to have a permitting process in the Pocono Mountains to get your short-term rental permit, like license, essentially.
To be able to rent to guests.
Exactly. You have to renew it. Now, most HOAs, and we know this now, will let you rent to the guest while you're in the permitting process. That's like a very standard operating procedure. They'll say, oh, I know your renewal is coming up. The code enforcement officer is super backed up. You know, it may take 30 days for him to get out there, but there's nothing that's really going to change. We'll let you rent. Our HOA is just dandy and awesome, and they won't let you rent when you're in that in-between period of getting your past renewal renewed. And we have had the largest amount of communication issues with the code enforcement officer that I could even explain. Like, I don't know if you can, my blood pressure's rising just talking about it, and Ryan knows because we've been, you know, hashing it out with the company that we own, right? I mean, like the company that our operation side of the company has been going back and forth with the code enforcement officer. One day he's telling us, oh, you need to move the hot tub here. Another day he's telling us, oh, you need a building permit for that. Another day he's like, oh, the shed that's been here for X amount of time. Yeah, you need a permit for that. And it's like, I've been just like beyond frustrated with it. So we finally are going to be able to have guests come back in.
Yeah, I think this is the property I believe we bought in October 21 or 22? 22. So it's up in the Poconos. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath. It did pretty well in terms of booking and getting, I guess the average, not the average nightly rental, but the amount of
revenue
vacancies.
for the year.
There was not a ton of vacancies, right?
No.
It would come in a lot, and the summers were hot. And
figure like $55,000 for the year is what we would do in revenue, 50, 60 grand on a $200,000 purchase, which is above that 20% rule, which is very good.
Totally. Well, we found, I mean, we were new to the region up in the Poconos, and it was our first time kind of investing up there. And we probably didn't know, I would say we didn't know what we didn't know in terms of the HOA and then the types of properties and what people are looking for. And then the types of tenants, I call them tenants, but the types of guests you'll get in depending on the price point of your property. So we learned a lot throughout the process, but basically we learned you need a hot tub up there, and a fire pit's an added benefit. Both of those things, when we originally bought, there was no fire, well, a rinky-dinky fire pit, which wasn't like a like masonry work. It was really just like one of those steel ones that you have out in the back.
Buy it at Home Depot.
Exactly. And then the hot tub was inflatable. So we got in there like, okay, these are the two things we're going to
Hot tub would break like every single week.
Yeah, it was insane. So we ended up buying another hot tub for $5,000, right? Spend it
install $6,500 total, right?
Then $3,000 on a new fire pit. So there's a lot of, what I'm going to get at here is like there's a lot of stepping stones, but a lot of money we shelled out at this place just to try to improve it and try to get it up to where we thought it would be. And then when we going through the underwriting process, we also didn't realize that every single time someone came through that HOA, every new guest was $40 per stay. So we'd rent out, if it was 10 stays a month, roughly, we'd be out $400. So that just took away. We only underwrote this property thinking we'd bring in about $1,000 a month in cash flow. And truly, we've lost most months.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I think at the net of the year, we ended up being positive because what happens in the Poconos is that the December, January, February are so good. And then June, July, August are even better than that. That's like the time. But we struggled a majority of the year. And then if you look at it on a balance sheet at the end of the year, we ended up coming out positive, but not near the 1,000 that we thought. And this is part of those bumps and bruises and learning curves that I feel like people just have to go through and not be afraid of. And you have reserves, and you don't put all your eggs in one basket. And you're like, if this short-term rental doesn't work, then I failed in my journey. If you take bite-sized chunks and learn and figure out what to do next, then you're able to pivot. And that's essentially what we have to do at this point.
Yeah. We also didn't realize that we were responsible for the permitting process. So every year, the short-term rental renewal process, we just assumed that the property management company would handle it. And we came to find out that was actually, as owners, our responsibility. And that was one of the issues too, where we were like, we probably would have been on it faster. But even though it wasn't too delayed, it was probably a couple of weeks late, but the annoying part was the actual code enforcement officer. Everything's much slower up in the mountains. And I don't know if in your markets it's different, but it really depends on who's running the office. And this gentleman's become a problem in the area. And there's a lot of petitions
like
to get him out.
People that are really pissed, like basically filing lawsuits.
Yeah, so. There was another client, I believe, within our umbrella, or at least someone that we knew, about 7 months they were out. And it was specifically in this jurisdiction and this gentleman. So we're not going to air him out too hard, but needless to say, we've had people reach out and ask about this specific HOA, and we've geared them towards, and the gentleman, if you're listening, he's awesome guy. He followed us for a while. He also has a place in the Poconos. He's talking about potentially jumping into this HOA. And I was like, dude, stay away. Just because we haven't had a great experience. It's not worth getting other people in there that are going to have to go through these hoops. And so what I'd recommend is when you're getting short-term rental, and maybe if it's up in the Poconos, like try to find an HOA where you don't have to deal with like the check-in and check-out process. I don't like when you have to go
for this no HOA.
Yeah, exactly. So what's really annoying for these guests too, and as we mentioned, this is a learning process. We didn't realize we bought this place without really going to see it. So maybe that's another thing. If you can make it to the property, go out and check it out and go through the live experience of what a guest would go through first. But when you pulled up to the development, you have to stop in this little community center to get a permit for going through the gated community, then go to the property. And so it sounds great, right? Like it's super secure, but it's really a pain in the ass when you're a guest and you just want to go enjoy your weekend or your stay away. You don't have to go in there, do the specific check-in. And then, I don't know, for me, it just seemed like a little bit cumbersome, and probably would have steered away from this place. The only thing that really drew us in was it was already furnished, newly renovated. It was super cheap and like right in our wheelhouse for a starter. So we knew we wouldn't lose our tails or our shirts if we went through this process. So we took the risk. It's been okay. It has been great. I think we're going to look to pivot out of this property at some point. When it's good, it's great. But now we're kind of like, maybe we'll scale up. Maybe we'll get something a little bit better, bigger property, maybe close to the lakefront, or kind of go into one of those multifaceted properties that Corey mentioned. We have ownership stake in the 43-unit resort, and then the 7-unit bungalows We also added a unit onto that we'll talk about later in the episode, which has been great. But looking to kind of repurpose those dollars and potentially move them into something else. So we're thinking about going through the process of listing this place just to see what we can get. If it meets a certain criteria, we'll sell it. And then if not, we'll let it keep cranking. And we know how to fix it, right? We're already back up and running here for the next couple of weeks. But we know what we need to do now is set a reminder that we need to go through this permitting process every year. The one thing that's scary is the hot tub seems like now they've cracked down in this area where you barely can get permitted for hot tubs. And so that's a big problem where guests are looking for that. So we feel we may be pigeonholed out of this place, which is just a warning to people that go into short-term rentals. You don't know what's going to happen in terms of, are you going to get grandfathered into certain rules? Or are you going to have to pivot and adapt to changes? And are those changes even adaptable? Like, can you even make the dollars that you thought you were going to make?
Yeah. And so basically people are probably thinking like, okay, what did you learn? And how can the guest who's listening benefit from this? One thing we learned, this is a problem township in the Poconos. So that doesn't mean every township is like this. I mean, most of them are very short-term rental friendly. We got stuck in one that happens to be not short-term rental friendly, but just more stringent. So we learned that. That's one thing. Another thing, if you're looking to get into short-term rentals, the uniqueness of your property matters. If you're buying a 2-bed or a 1-bed, it has to be like a sick A-frame that has just something that stands out from the rest. If you're not going to do that, you really kind of have to spend the money, buy a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bedroom, something that people can go with friends to stay the weekend. And we really learned this kind of the hard way. So most 2-beds can perform okay. The market is really crunched. So you have to have, and we like our property. I think it's great. And Rye said it came furnished. It did, but we also spent probably $20,000 to $25,000 on new wallpaper, new couches, the fire pit we mentioned, the hot tub. So we did spend some additional money in trying to furnish the place, and we're learning this whole thing as we go. And the reason why we don't want it to be all gloom and doom, because now that we've learned this, like our Live Free Hospitality team can help people find the right property. Now, everyone that goes into investments has to figure out, like, the projections are the projections. Nobody can guarantee that the 2021, 2022, and 2023 revenue is going to play out 2024, 2025, 2026. That is the investment risk that you inherently take. So Ryan and I are not mad at anybody except ourselves. Like we're mad at the code enforcement officer. I should say that. That kind of sucks.
I think the point here is we should have dove in a little bit deeper into the market before picking a specific HOA and going with that. And then also diving deeper into the numbers. Like every projection in underwriting or underwriter is different, right? So there was just certain things that we may have missed. And I think we would go back and probably do things a little bit differently, but not completely. And at the end of the day, we knew what the risk we were getting into, and we haven't really lost in the place.
No,
it's I think the first year was we
lost
$200 a month or something.
Yeah, we lost like $200 a month the first year, and that was actually only 4 months of getting it set up. And then the second year, we were like around break even. We made a little bit of money. So it's just it's like you live and you learn. Like that's really what this is all about. So now we know. Ryan mentioned about scaling up. I think our goal is to list it. We're only selling it if it hits a certain criteria. We did appreciate the property a little bit. We've added some nice touches. If it doesn't hit this market, we will continue to rent, or doesn't hit the criteria that we want to sell, we'll continue to rent it'll make money in 2024. We know that, but probably just not as much as we thought.
Yeah, that's true. And I think there's little things you can do along the way. We've talked about this in a myriad of episodes, but basically going through and making it the most comfortable stay for people, whether you're going to add a king bed, you're going to add specific mattress pads, you're going to add, obviously we mentioned the hot tub, we mentioned the fire pit, but there's little things you can do inside the units to make the stay easier. QR codes with a walkthrough on how to use certain things, and just have things posted up everywhere. Whether you have video, you also have video games, large widescreen TVs, like just there's things that seem obvious, but then there's other things that you really can like dig into, and people will leave reviews. I think we've also found, and this is just with Airbnbs or short-term rentals in general, like you're really pigeonholed on Airbnb to the reviews. Like if you get bad reviews, it really drives you down in the algorithm, and then pushes you back in the pages, and then you might see lesser people book their stays. So, we had on this one property, we had one horrendous guest, and it's just we ended up getting a 1 star, and the rest were 5 stars. But that threw off our whole
It takes you from like a 5.0 to like a 4.3, even if you only have 5 reviews. And even if you have a 1-star when there's 12 other good reviews, it's sounding like a 4.4, 4.5, 4.6. And, the ones that are getting booked are 4.7, 4.8, 4.9.
Yeah, it matters. So then there's also the strategy of pulling people off Airbnb through booking direct, right? We created a website and we have all the properties listed. That's, if you want to look at it, it's livefreehospitality.com. And it basically has all the units under management, and you can go and book direct. You save about 10%, which is great. And then you're not pigeonholed into Airbnb's fees. And so for us, that's where we're kind of looking to pull off, really move our business so that people don't feel like they, have to pay those surplus of fees. I think even if you're looking online to like buy tickets to certain things, you always get hit with extra fees. If you can go right to the seller, right, you can make a deal yourself. So there's just a lot of ways we've learned to enhance the business, but then also for our personal portfolios, it's like, where do we want to put our risk? And what's worth the time?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, for so little dollars, all the headaches, it's not worth it. We were like, I'd rather take a bigger risk and have more reward to know that I'm going to put the same amount of time in.
Yeah, and I would think, to put a bow on it, to wrap this up, the point of bringing all this up is when we post on Instagram, or anybody posts on Instagram, we're posting our highlight reel, and this is the real shit. Like, this is what happens when you get into real estate investing. Like, not everything works out. The Elements project that we're working on is going amazing. The Sweet Pea bungalows are going amazing. We have an 18-unit project that we're general partners on in New Hampshire. So far, so good. It seems to be going great. We have another project, a 10Y project, that we'll talk about. Like, that's in the works. We have a lot of things that are going well, but not every single thing or every investment is going well. And that's why we're talking about it. That's why we want to bring it to light and be like, hey, we made this mistake here. Hopefully you can learn from it and maybe not make the same of your own. So I think that's our one STR story for you. We can talk about now the A-frame that we just renovated, and shout out to JD Dempsey. He's our boy who also owns Live Free Hospitality. And he actually did the execution of this project, but Ryan and I helped with the design and the funding of it. So we've just bought this A-frame that's going to be part of we actually posted about it. You could check it out on our Instagram. I know this is coming out after we posted, but go back a couple posts and you'll see it. We bought this property, I believe it was $190,000, right?
Yeah,
roughly 190. We bought it in September. Renovations were completed in November. It took about 8 weeks. We put about $60,000 into the property, so you're talking about all in for around $250,000. We believe it'll do about $60,000 to $70,000 in revenue, and it's a 1-bed A-frame. You can see it. It's like this green, this cool like forest-ish green color. We think it'll appraise for over $300,000. So not sure if we'll be able to pull. We definitely won't be able to pull all of our cash out, but we'll pull some cash out. We'll have it over $300,000, all in for $250,000. So you have that nice equity spread there. Basically, the spread of equity is as much as we put into the renovations. So that's good. But we found that there's not that many 1-bedroom places in the Poconos. They typically don't do amazing on Airbnb. They do amazing when there's something that's really sick, like this A-frame. And I don't know, how would you describe the design to people? Like it's like a...
Well, if they've seen Elements, it's sort of like that.
Yeah.
So basically, there's pine throughout the walls and the ceiling. I don't know, I couldn't say doesn't fit into like the boho or the modern chic or whatever it is, or like the farmhouse. I can't really put it's unique. Basically, to me, it's like an elegant cabin feel. And it's all wooded. It's funny, there's like a crib in there, but then also the everything's
like
accented with wood. Yeah, leather couch. The bathroom's redone. You'd have to see it to really understand what it is, but one of the peak interests of ours when we first got there, we realized there's not a ton for a mountain, I guess, what do you want to call it, like the local area basically, versus like an urban rural. We have like this mountain town that we're investing in, right? And so what we found is there's not a ton of A-frames out there, which we thought was weird because we see them online all the time. We're like, wow, if we can get one of these, I feel like it'll stick out and people will want that unique stay. And also on Airbnb, bringing it back there, you'll see unique stays at the top, and there's bars, and it has a bunch of little different things that you can stay in, and one of those is an A-frame. So, and then there's some tree houses and really cool ones you'll see when you log into your Airbnb app. But for us, we wanted to be able to fall into one of those unique stay categories and just see how it does. So we found Elements has been booking like crazy, and so it's a 1-bedroom, and so for us, we're like, okay, if we can replicate that but have it as an A-frame, we think it'll kill, and we'll just run the same processes through that. So we renovated it pretty similarly, and we'll see. I mean, it just went live, I think maybe yesterday, a couple days ago.
Yeah, it should be live earlier in this week. We just got the professional photography done. But to give people an idea of like how did we feel like it's going to perform and why did we decide to purchase it? Basically, we mentioned this before on the podcast, and it's a rule of thumb, but like the 20% rule. So meaning that the revenue of the property for the year should be about 20% of the purchase price or more to know if the property is going to perform. Now, it changes with the interest rates. Obviously, we got a little bit of a higher interest rate than if we purchased it 2 years ago. But basically, being all in for $250,000, thinking that this property will do around $70,000 a year. 70,000 times 5 is $350,000. So it's well over that 20%, closer to that 30% range, where we feel like we have some buffer room for expenses and maintenance and everything. The other thing being said is when you renovate a property to the degree that we did, everything's new. So we hopefully don't have expenses for a little while, although we did still underwrite for them. So that was the idea and the thought behind how is this property going to perform. Now, again, we don't know, but that is the experience that we've built with Live Free, having 120 properties under management and seeing where the market falls. We feel pretty good about it.
We know what works now and what doesn't work.
Yep.
And so for us, I think this will be one of the best stays that we offer. And what's cool is we also we added the fire pit. B, we added the hot tub, but then C, just to add a little bit more uniqueness, we also added an EV station. So basically for electric vehicles, they can plug in there, which I thought it was a nice touch. Something different. I'm not sure, exactly how many people will be using it, but if it hits those one or two and you see it in the listing, you might stay there. So I think this place will be cool, where we just kind of used our knowledge of the last year, right? We've only been up in the Poconos for like a year and a half in terms of properties and really cranking this thing. So with that, we'll see how it goes. Yeah. We have like 3 pretty solid creative projects going on, one including the A-frame, other ones including elements, and then the bungalows. So they've been doing pretty well. I think one thing that's very cool about the bungalows, we have a 15-year note. So with this A-frame jumping in here, it's just going to be interesting. Like every person that stays, it drills down the principal on the loan, which is awesome. So I feel like this property is just going to keep cranking. And for us, we know it's a long-term play. Yeah. So everybody talks cash flow and versus appreciation and all these things and equity. And so for us, we have a mixed bag, right? Some of them are for cash flow, certainly, but this one I feel is a big equity play.
Yeah, and because of the 15-year note, I'm glad you brought that up. When you talk about short-term rentals, mainly the key word is cash flow. That's what everyone thinks about. But the fact that we have these properties on a 15-year note, we're paying down $60,000 to $65,000 per year paid by the guests on our note. So that's $60,000 to $65,000 that are going each year that are going to the net worth of the investors, including us that own the property. So that's huge. Principal pay down is something that's just like left out of what people talk about when they talk about buying real estate. Not to mention, I wouldn't say the Poconos are like this scorching appreciation market, but like depending upon where you are, if you have really nice properties in a place that you upkeep them, it'll be a steady 2 to 3% a year. So you're adding that appreciation, you're paying it down, you're creating that spread, and the 15-year note's huge for when we go to refinance, we can pull a bunch of our initial cash out.
Yeah, I also wanted to bring this back to the first deal that we kind of battered and beat down a little bit in the beginning of the episode. But the reason we feel like we haven't completely lost there is, even though we took a $200 loss like monthly, we still were paying down, and guests were paying down the note every single month. And so if we could break even one year and then we lost like an average of $200 a month, that's what, $2,400 a year. That's not crazy, considering that we still have great equity in the property, and then these tenants are getting paid down. It's just the time that it takes to do all this and all the dollars we pumped in that was kind of like, wow, we have other things we could have put this into, and kind of got wheels turning more. But you live and you learn, and you got to go through these things. I think that's what's important to highlight, is like going through both the highs and the lows. It teaches you what to do moving forward and what to avoid, and it'll show you your risk tolerance and how you want to spend your time.
Totally. I don't think a lot of people get into real estate for the principal pay down. I mean, I shouldn't say that, into short-term rentals for the principal pay down. They get into short-term rentals because they feel like there's all this cash flow. The thing is that it's not 2020 anymore. It's not 2021. Like, there's people out there like make $60,000 in cash flow on a property. Show me. And I believe it exists. It's just, it's a lot harder to find. And we've taken that approach into all these properties. We've underwritten them with a little bit more, a little more leeway and making sure that we know that the fundamentals of real estate still stand. We're just not expecting $50,000 a year in cash flow on a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah, we just got to be even more conservative than we have been moving forward. So I know we mentioned it briefly, but we also have a project going on up in New Hampshire and in Manchester. Actually, it's an 18 unit, and we took it down. It's a multifamily value add. So essentially, I think we mentioned this in a couple episodes previously, but our partner up there, Sean Winslow.
Shout out to Sean, man.
Yeah, he's
awesome.
He is the best.
Yeah.
And so he's running things up in New Hampshire, and basically, this property is right next to Southern New Hampshire University. It's on a street where it's close to shopping. It's like the local commerce area, but it's a C neighborhood, right? It's not a beautiful place, but it's not horrendous.
There is a park right behind it, though, like a nice park that people from the university tend to use.
Yeah, so that's like probably the one of the biggest perks of the place is it's a corner lot. There's a coffee shop right next to it. Then there's this big park, but within these units, we are slowly converting all of them to Section 8 just to go to the voucher program, because within New Hampshire, essentially you can go right to market value with the rent if you go the Section 8 route. And we much rather be getting a check from the government every month than trying to collect tenants' dollars. It's just a little bit, you know the game. If you're a landlord, it's you hope they pay every month. You're not sure. You do the best vetting you possibly can in the screening process. But for this, that's our business plan with it. We're tackling it one unit at a time. And essentially, there were some vacant units in the beginning. Those got renovated first. We're plugging 2 or 3 tenants for those units in December. So we're well on our way. And then probably will be completely renovated and full by mid-summer. I think August of next year. That's the plan. So they take a little bit to do, but this is going to be a killer project. It's about a 5 to 7 year projection. We'll look to probably sell or refinance at that point. We'd like to hold it for as long as possible, as long as we can keep driving up rent and making it a beautiful place to stay for people. We renovated new floors, new paint, new light fixtures, new security system, new exterior lights. And then we meet every Friday. It's actually pretty cool. We do a weekly update with the property manager and get to see the nitty gritty what they're doing and flipping this place around. And it's beautiful. It's I say beautiful, but it's really nice. They're upgrading it from where it was completely. And it's cool to see, to provide housing for people. I think we get away from that. We tend as real estate investors and in this community, you hear on podcasts a lot, people always talk about the dollars, but what I find is really cool is you're providing housing and a great place to live for someone. And if you can realize you're doing good as well as making some dough, I think that's really key to think about.
Yeah, 100%, man. That was well said. Another thing to add is that not all of the units, I was not on the call this week. Last week's call, Sean mentioned to us that the projected rents, or we actually got higher than what we projected in our underwriting for a couple of the units, which was great to hear. But yeah, this project has been awesome. I think Sean and the Greenbrier team they're second to none. And our property manager is, you learn who good property managers are as you go through the process of trying to find what works and what doesn't. And we have weekly calls. It's been great. So we're excited about this. We're excited to get it completely finished. Like Rye said, it's not a bad time to have it completely finished in that summer, for the last few months of getting new tenants in. We did have some evictions that, you had to go through, and that's part of the process of getting some of the tenants out. But one thing I will say is that in Manchester, New Hampshire, the vacancy rate is 0.6, which beats the, I think the vacancy rate of most markets is around 4 or 5%. So it's one of those things that we're filling it quickly with quality tenants because there's such a demand for it.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving into New Hampshire from Massachusetts which
I didn't know before a couple years ago, right? Yeah, I wouldn't even have thought.
No, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm from that area, so and it's just interesting. So follow the migration patterns, and you'll tell. I mean, that same thing goes for Tampa, where you have your short-term rental down there.
Cool. And the last thing we want to talk about here today is our fund, 10Y, 10 Years to Retirement Fund, and we have this fund that's still open to accredited investors. There's Ryan and I are co-GPs on a project with Bala Krishnan and Derek Peterson. We had both of them on previous episodes separately, probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And this, if you're interested, this is a pretty cool, unique model fund where basically if you're an accredited investor, you can get in and have a one-time investment that takes you through a series of ground-up development projects 5 cycles of ground up development projects that in 10 years-ish, that's the projected timeline, you can multiply or actually exponentially multiply your initial investment. The projected, idea is that it'll be something around 30 times your initial investment. Again, that, that's kind of just what we're hoping to get. It's been pretty cool so far going through this process, sitting in on these like co-GP meetings, talking about the ground up development projects that are going on in Arizona, and like our team has met with the mayor out there. It's pretty exciting. So if you have any interest in being a passive LP investor in the syndication, I would recommend just taking a look, because we've had a couple people that have shown interest, that have committed to the fund, and I think that the more people that hear it, the more people it might resonate with. And it's something to do on the side of like whatever else you're doing. If you're not happy with the stock market, you're not happy with, maybe you have a bunch of money sitting in your 401k and you're like, what? I'm not really sure what to do. We still invest in those, by the way. Like I have money in a brokerage and a 401k. I watch it every day, which is totally not healthy to do. But I look at it, I'm like, what is going on? Like this week's good, this week's bad. I think that taking a diversified risk, but a diversified strategic risk, could potentially help you. So, and we've talked about it, have a couple posts on our Instagram about it, and some podcast episodes, but it's been cool. We've learned so much. So yeah, I don't know if you,
I don't have anything. That's good.
Just nothing.
I mean, yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's good.
No,
it's fine. Is that all you want to say?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just say so if you're interested. You can reach out to us.
Yeah, or go to the page, I guess.
Well, that was for the webinar. I think now maybe people would reach out to us directly. I sent it over.
Sure.
Okay.
Everything.
We hosted a webinar on this 3 to 4 weeks ago, and you can see a recording. I believe the recording's on our website at juice-enterprises.com/10Y. That's the number 10Y. But if it was the recording was from a few weeks ago, and there's a little bit of updated information in a good way. So if you're interested and you're accredited, feel free to shoot us a DM at Weekly Juice Pod. We'd love to chat. It's one of those unique circumstances where we've always wanted to say, if we have something cool that's going on, we're going to share it with our audience. So feel free to reach out. Happy to go over the deal with you, and or connect you with the operating team, who's just a bunch of rock stars. So yeah, with that, I think we're wrapping here. We want to make sure that we bring relevant, real-time advice, and then what's going on in our journey. We continue to do that because some of the guests, they may or may not pertain to your particular circumstance. But I feel like we're really happy to bring all this content to you and your journey, and we hope it helps. That's why we're doing it every week. So we really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.